Sounds great.
Great. So I'd like to introduce Mike Grandinetti. Mike is a former Silicon Valley engineer and a McKinsey strategy consultant, has been continuously active in the fields of innovation, entrepreneurship, and human-centric design as an operating executive and educator. He was a C-level executive of 8 successful enterprise tech startups. 2 went public on the NASDAQ. 7 were acquired by companies like Oracle and Symantec, and by IBM twice. He's raised over $1 billion cumulatively, and has also served as a CMO of a New York Stock Exchange listed company. And in addition to the ELPP faculty bench, he's a member of the faculty bench at Brown, Harvard, Rutgers, where he teaches master's and executive courses on innovation, entrepreneurship, and design thinking. He was named Financial Times Professor of the Week and has won numerous Professor of the Year and Global Teaching Excellence Awards. Mike, the class is all yours.
Thank you, Aaron. Always a pleasure to have a chance to be a part of this experience. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you tonight. And I'm assuming by now we know the rules are I'm not here to lecture to you. We're here to have a discussion, okay? And so that's the intent. And hopefully make this as impactful as I can for you, and make it as interactive as we possibly can. So let me, so I have taught in this program now for probably 5 years. And we're doing something a little different tonight, right? I've spent a lot of the last several years talking about disruptive innovation and the importance of, how large companies can not just, get off their heels and stop playing defense, but to really set the agenda and play offense. We're going to try something a little different tonight. We're going to talk about creativity and creative confidence. And if you did have a chance to read the article by the Kelly brothers, the gentlemen that were the founders of IDEO, the founders of the D School, you'll have a pretty good sense as to what creative confidence is and why it is so important, okay? I am not going to belabor my background, only to say that I do work with, in addition to being a professor, I do work with a lot of companies around the world, okay? And you'll recognize some of these names. And in a couple of cases, you may actually work. Samsung is a client of mine as well, although not the R&D group. And I've worked with a lot of tech companies, right? So I am literally just back from India. And I thought you might find this article interesting because this just appeared a week ago in the Times of India. And the primary headline here is engineers have to reimagine their roles as the world's speed up. Okay. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anybody. And when you look at the article, what it basically goes on to say is, for engineers now, it's about fail fast platforms. It's about, all about customer outcomes. It's about becoming much more ambidextrous, right? No longer a prisoner to a single programming language, but to become a polyglot, right? Probably nothing that comes as a surprise, but I thought it was an interesting article in terms of timing. Now, I was out last week with the auto company known as Stellantis. And if you don't know the name Stellantis, you will recognize the names Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, Jeep, Peugeot, Citroën, Fiat, Alfa Romeo, Maserati, right? And so we're sitting around an executive conference room, and a lot of the people, there's a very, very bright group of people, okay? And it was their entire Asia Pac leadership team. And so there came a question at one point, someone said, how can such an incredible collection of such smart, ambitious, hardworking people come across as just completely ineffective in what we do, okay? And I have to believe that some of you at certain moments in your life have probably asked yourself the same question, okay? When a system or an organization does not work as it should, it is not because people are not well-educated, well-credentialed, intelligent. It's because you're operating under some structure that's just not obvious to an outsider, right? And often that structure is a huge obstacle to both creativity and innovation. Just yesterday, McKinsey released a new report. And it's actually pretty striking. And I would love to get your reaction to the data here, right? So they're starting to look at employee engagement. And what's remarkable is if you look at those employees that are thriving stars, we're talking a relatively small group, about 6.5% of the people in the company are stars. And only about, 40% are satisfied and committed. Okay. There's a substantial number of people that are mildly engaged, disruptive, or they've already quit. They just haven't turned in their notice yet. And of course, this course is all about engineering leadership. And as leaders, it is our job to engage every member of our team, right? To get the absolute most creativity, innovation, productivity, energy out of them. But it's very clear that that's not necessarily working today. And there's no doubt that some of this has been exacerbated from COVID and work from home and hybrid and, a lot of changes in the workplace. But, this has been underway for a long time. And I've spent enough time as a McKinsey consultant, as an innovation consultant, and I've had a chance to spend time getting to know some of your peers in one-on-one discussions, outside of the classroom. And there's no question that we hear this a lot, this level of frustration. And what was striking for me last week was the people that were in the room, a significant number of them were named sort of the next generation of leaders in the company. And yet their frustration was palpable. It was absolutely palpable. Okay. And so there's a lot that we can do as leaders, right? So we may or may not have a chance to set, compensation structures, but we certainly have a lot of influence in making work more meaningful, to provide more flexibility in the way that our teams get work done, to be there as coaches and mentors, to be there in a more supportive way, to create a safer workplace environment. And here I'm not thinking about harassment. I'm thinking about encouragement, encouraging people to bring their unique perspectives, their idiosyncrasies to work, and to allow them to be their authentic selves so that they can fully contribute, right? And so that's part of what leaders should be doing. And so, not surprisingly, just the more satisfied and committed people at work are the ones that are self-reporting, well-being, and they're performing the best. So the message, I guess, that we're going to try to understand tonight, right? You're all incredibly well-educated, highly credentialed, hardworking people that are working in some of the most prestigious companies in Silicon Valley or on the planet. And so you've all gotten here through, a lot of hard work and a lot of education. But the world is changing so dramatically, and I'm not even going to think about what ChatGPT is doing to all of our lives. We can get there later. And so, does anybody listen to the podcast Hard Fork? Use your icon if you do, right? It's my favorite podcast. This is a podcast that is jointly hosted by Kevin Roos of the New York Times and Casey Newton of Platformer, right? Very, very smart guys. They do a deep dive every week, every Friday morning, about 90 minutes on the tech industry. And the reason I ask you this is because this past week, one of the stories they did was about, and we all recognize this image. This is the Burning Man, although they called it Drowning Man this time. Okay. Burning Man was a little less deserty than it's been in the past. But the reason I bring it up is because one of the guests on the episode was a guy named Adrian Aoun. And Adrian's a very smart guy, right? He had reported to Larry Page for many years at Google directly. And amongst other things, he helped start the AI division at Google. And then he was the founder and CEO of Sidewalk Labs, right? And Sidewalk Labs, you may remember, right? Because there was a lot going on in San Jose, California about Sidewalk Labs. But Sidewalk Labs was all about completely changing the way that we think about cities. And he said that Larry Page actually not only encouraged him, more or less almost forced him to go to Burning Man. And what he said was, it was such a gift because there are no rules at Burning Man, right? I mean, you see someone walking down the street with no pants in San Francisco, it's like that person's kind of weird. You see someone walking around, in Burning Man, it's like, okay, another person without pants. But every rule, every societal rule that we're used to is basically obliterated. And so what he talked about was what an incredible mind-bending reorientation that he was able to take away. And so because the frame of reference was destroyed, he was able to make a fairly significant leap and reimagining things that he could never have done before. Okay. And so we're going to try to give you a chance to practice this a little bit tonight as you think about the projects that you're working on with your teams. Okay. And so, I want to talk about how you might gain or regain creative confidence. Now, I realize many of you are PhDs and masters in science, and you're running R&D teams and you're running project teams. And you might say that creativity is not my job. That's, we got marketing people for that. We got other people. We got designers that do that. I'm not all about creativity. And so the thing that is important to understand is that creativity is the catalyst. It is the front end. It is the rocket fuel that drives innovation. Okay. Innovation, of course, is vitally important, but innovation is the process that we engage in to scale creativity. Creativity is that very early front end where we're trying to come up with very novel ideas, really thinking about things from a variety of different points of view that allow us to conceive of something that no one has come up with before. And that gives us an opportunity to create a uniquely differentiated product or experience that when we turn it into an innovation and we're able to the market commercially, we have something powerful. But creativity is also in all of our DNA. And all of us are creators at heart. All of us want to create, right? It's a universal expression. And most of us don't feel that, one, we have the ability, or two, we are in an environment that allows us to create. So I want to go a little bit upstream of what we often talk about, which is innovation, and talk about creativity feeding the innovation process. So let me just take a pause there. And I want to ask you about that McKinsey chart that I showed you about the level of engagement, and a very, very small number of people are actually stars. And, a minority, a large minority, but a minority nonetheless of people are engaged. Anybody want to react to that? Anybody have any thoughts or experiences that you want to share based on your own professional observations around engagement and the challenges that you are facing as leaders to get people to fully engage, in this very, very unique, very disruptive time? Yeah. Chris, hi. Thank you so much for breaking the ice.
Hi. Yeah, no, I thought the chart you showed is pretty accurate. I think we can all say in our lives we work with people who are superstars, all the way people who are not engaged. So I wasn't surprised to see that. The percentages is what I would have guessed, even though this was my first time seeing the data. The only one that kind of stood out to me, even though it wasn't a big percent on that, are the people who double dip. I think was like 5%. That kind of surprised me. Actually, that was higher than I thought it would be. But out of your whole chart, that one actually caught my eye for some reason. Everything else made complete sense. But the double dippers, I do know it occurs in general in most jobs, but like in the technical job, I'm surprised, and I'm also surprised it's high as the 5%.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So let me ask you this: when you said that not too surprised about the disengaged, do you feel that there's an ability to make the disengaged more engaged if leaders were more attentive? Do you think that this is a failure as much of leadership or as it is of the disengaged, that they've checked out, but it's not because they wanted to check out? They just kind of resign themselves at some point to saying, okay, nothing's going to change here?
I do think it is a distribution. In all companies, this distribution exists everywhere. I don't think any industry is not influent to that. But my view is, I think all managers, good managers, do look at people who are disengaged and try to get them engaged. Like our company does employee surveys, for exactly this reason, so we can find out why people are disengaged and what we can do. But on the other hand, I think you have a set number of that distribution that there's nothing you can say or do
Right.
that would
Yeah.
ever change that distribution or their mind. I think it's a subset of that distribution.
Right. I hear
But
you.
obviously the ones we have to focus on are people who we can influence to move them further to the right.
That's great. Thank you, Chris. So Bhopal, Margaret, there was anything that is in addition to, not reinforcing what Chris said, but sort of in addition to, or different angle, different dimension? Bhopal, you're nodding your head vigorously, so please.
Yeah, so one point I want to say that the top 6%, I mean, one of the attributes that I have seen with those guys is that most of us kind of are wary of change, but those guys take that as an opportunity. And every time I've seen that. So it is a repeated occurrence of that. Every time there's a change, they grab onto it and they ride that wave, and that clearly make them distinct from rest of whatever 90% of the people. That's point one. Point two is that about what you were talking about, is it a leadership failure as well, why this high percentage of people are disengaged? I think the system as a whole is towards optimizing the overall result rather than optimizing onto the each bracket of that, unless until there is a personal interest in a manager. So each manager could have a different style of leadership. So some people want to make sure that each of their person who's working with them is the best version of themselves, right?
Yeah.
And they would probably pay more attention and more investment. But as a system, if you see, right, as an organization, we want to see that overall investment in people and their throughput, if it is optimized, we are okay, rather than optimizing on each slab as a whole.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you, Bhopal. Debasis, anything you want to add to that that's sort of different from
Right. I have a question actually. So you said 5% people are star, right? What was the star before, like before pandemic or COVID? Was it different? I mean, we heard about 80-20 rule or maybe a 10% versus 90% rule. I was just curious, what was the ratio before?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I have to go back and look. I don't know what the baseline was. I suspect they do this on a fairly regular basis, and I'd be happy to share some of the more recent surveys with Aaron. I just don't know. Okay. My point was much more around the level of disengagement, right? Which is substantial. When half of your workforce is disengaged, Houston, we have a problem, right? That's a problem.
Isn't it like 80-20%, like 20% people work and 80% people kind of like piggyback on that?
Well, I mean, that might be in general, but I'm going to share with you some organizations where it's like 99%, 1%, right? I mean, there are organizations that understand, using a team of teams approach, creating with a very intentional culture where everybody is deeply engaged, right? And obviously that's what we would love to see. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Anant, anything you want to add? And then I want to keep moving forward here because there's a lot I want to cover and I want to give you guys some time to break out.
Yeah, just my own observation, having worked at a small, medium, and large company.
Yeah.
I think the level of engagement may come down to two things, among other things. One is the person's sense of contribution. So if they are contributing well, and the other is the sense of appreciation for their contribution.
Right.
So if both are going on, I think that keeps people engaged.
Yeah. And of course, in order to contribute, you need to be given the ability to contribute, right?
Right.
And not everybody feels that they are given the ability to contribute. So there's no question that is very important. And obviously some managers are better than others about, giving public, compliments to their people, right? So I mean, we can control a lot of that for sure, right? So now let me ask you this. I did ask Aaron, and I don't know how many of you have had a chance to take this very simple assessment. This is the Berkeley Innovation Index. And it's always great to have, as a leader, self-awareness is so powerful. Okay. So is there anybody that did this and was surprised by your score? Anybody that said, maybe I'm not quite as innovative? So Bhopal, you're like a Cheshire cat. Bhopal, don't play poker. Okay. If you play poker, you're going to lose a lot of money. You are a guy that just shows your emotions on your face. So tell me, what is it that is so humorous about the Berkeley Innovation Index to you?
No, very interestingly. So my team has been creating a lot of IPR innovation at a company level. This time we did a survey and I got very low score on innovation. And I did this index and I got low score on that. So it was kind of a reflection on me and something to learn about. So that's the reason, smile on my face.
That's great. So let me ask you, if there was one thing that you learned about yourself from these two recent experiences, what would you say is the one thing you feel like you need to work on to be, a more innovative, and again, not even a leader, just to be more innovative on a professional level yourself?
I think I'm just trying to confirm with the rules more. And I mean, so that's one thing I have to probably break it out.
All right. So if I heard you correctly, maybe you're too willing to abide by the rules, willing to comply with corporate process.
Yes.
And not willing maybe to rock the boat a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And what company are you with?
I'm with Yahoo.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I've heard that before from your colleagues. Not about you, but about themselves. So yeah, it's a tough, and it's a PE. It's a company owned by a PE firm, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That presents its own challenges.
Yes.
Anybody else score high on the upside? Anybody feel like you had an opportunity to surprise yourself and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm pretty innovative.
What do you consider as high?
What do I consider high?
Yeah.
I'd say if you're in the 80s, that's pretty high.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Very quiet group tonight. Okay. All right. So I'm not going to bother with my own scores, but you've got a number of different areas that I think are pretty easy to unpack, right? Are you able to trust the people that you work with, right? Because lacking trust, it's really, really difficult to collaborate. Okay. If you wind up in a situation where you have hit a wall and failing again is only learning, but some people view failing as failure. Are you resilient enough to sort of, dust yourself off, pick yourself back up and keep charging forward? Okay. Do you seek out diverse opinions, people that are cognitively diverse, functionally diverse, experientially diverse? Okay, going outside of your team, outside of your engineering or R&D sphere, and valuing the perspective of others, right? This is a very, very powerful way to drive a high innovation score and a high innovation outcome. Do you have confidence in your own abilities? Do you believe that if you're, given a task, given a project, that you're going to succeed, right? You're going to find a way to succeed, and you have a team that's going to help you do that. Do you understand how to allocate resources in a way that is effective? Okay. Collaboration. I know in the past I presented, I'd say 20% of all companies, CEOs believe they're very good at collaboration, right? This is a really challenging thing, right? The silos in companies are really, really painful to navigate. And there are companies that have figured out that, there are people that their entire job is to allow for the knocking down of walls, knocking down of silos, and to bring a collaborative approach across the company, right? Companies that invest in it, that are intentional, are the ones that get value out of it. Okay. So I'm going to keep going because it doesn't seem like a lot of you did that. So now I want to ask you about creativity in real time. And I do hope I get some new voices here. What does creativity mean to you as engineers, as people that work in some of the most sophisticated tech companies in Silicon Valley? What does creativity mean to you? And does it have meaning at all? Do you think about creativity as an important part of what you do professionally, or what your team does? Or is this something that you think is somebody else's job?
Looks like we got Omid and Margaret have their hands up.
Okay, yeah, so please go ahead. I'm sorry, I just don't see the hands up on my screen, but okay, Omid, you go first if you would, sir.
Okay, so creativity to me means that you think out of the box, basically coming up with new ideas and new ways to complete the task.
Okay.
That's what it means to me.
Okay, so an out-of-the-box thinker, new novel approaches to either complete a task, or I assume to design a new product or new experience? right?
Yeah, and then
So it's not-
improve.
yeah.
Maybe it could be a task that you just come up with a new idea to improve the way that you're doing things. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Let me ask you, Owen, do you think that you are creative? Would you say that you're a creative guy?
Yes and no.
Okay. Give me the yes
Depends,
part.
depends on the task. I mean, in some areas, yes, I would actually say that I am, and in some other areas, probably not.
Give me an example of where you're most creative. What kind of things bring out the most creative part of you?
When I'm actually working on something, like this example that we had, the task of coming up with new ideas and stuff.
Yeah.
I find myself kind of ideas. I constantly think about the new products, and I think about that. It could be a stupid idea. It could be a very good idea. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
But I constantly think about that, and so
Right.
something. If the project is something tangible, I think
Yeah.
I'm quite good with it. I like to get my hands dirty and
Yeah.
be something that I can get my hands on and work on it. But in other
That's great.
areas, I mean, coming with a new way to do something that already has been established and stuff, maybe I'm not too good with
Okay.
that.
Well, I'm impressed with, it sounds like you're willing to kind of step outside of the lines, and you're not afraid of putting an idea up there that others may not judge, positively, but it's like, hey, I think it's pretty unique and pretty interesting, and I want to put this idea forward. So that's great. All right.
Yeah.
So Margaret, since I heard from you before, I'm going to let Alex jump in first. I'm going to come back to you, but Alex, please.
Well, I guess I was just going to say that, I feel like my team is fairly creative because usually the stuff that's, kind of the established way of doing things already been tried by 10 other people before it gets to us. And so at that point, we're like, well, we tried all the normal things. So we really got to start thinking of the crazy solutions, things that nobody's thought of. And so I don't know, to me, that's kind of one of the things that makes my job interesting, is that we're not doing the same thing over and over again. We're always solving new problems.
That's great. And what organization are you with, Alex?
I'm right down the road from you in Gloucester at Applied Materials.
Oh, cool. All right. So let me ask you, so in all of these different experiences where you're downstream of a bunch of ideas that didn't pay off and you had to get creative, what is one that you think might be one of the more creative, ideas that the team came up with as a result of sort of responding to, some things that might not have been working really well upstream of you?
Well, I mean, I think, we do product development and there's some creative ideas there, but typically our creativity kind of stems from solving a really complex problem that a customer is having.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know, to give you an example, we had a problem actually at a customer who's on this call as well, so I won't say the name, but
okay.
It was a problem that was highly complex. We were dealing with the whole problem basically started during COVID, so our ability to even travel and get overseas and gather data was really stifled. So we had to do a lot of things differently. We had to do a lot of WebEx to gain data. We had to do a lot of experiments in-house, and it was just a complex physics and technical problem that once we got a solution, you kind of peeled back one layer of the onion, and you had 3 other things kind of stacked up against you. So it was a multi-layer problem, which made it really hard to solve.
Sounds like you were pretty relentless in getting there, though. Sounds like you guys, just didn't stop until you got there. Very cool.
I think that's a good word to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. All right, Margaret, please.
For me, creativity is what Ahmed said, how do you solve a problem in the most efficient way possible and in the least costly way that you can? But also for me, creativity is when we talked about some of those leadership things with collaboration and all that.
Yeah.
Some teams are challenging to work with.
Yeah.
You get them to work with you.
I'm sorry, please go ahead.
How do you get them to work with you? Leave aside all your ego and stuff and make sure you work with them to deliver the product. And that part of how you determine how to handle it and move forward in a consistent way for me, that also is creativity, because that basically gets to the end product.
That's great. Do you consider yourself to be creative?
I think to somewhat,
Yeah.
the situation needs, but there are a lot of people who are way more creative in my team, I would say.
Okay. But it's great that you see their creativity, right? And you're willing to give them the space to be creative, right? That's a very important part of being a leader. Absolutely.
One of the most important things is when we're working on these complex projects, even if it's not exactly related to what we're working on, the team is very open to go and developing new things. In fact, we have developed multiple services which other teams use.
That's great.
So that is basically, and it's very valued and appreciated.
Thank you, Margaret. Harthi, hello.
Hi, Michael. So creativity to me, I think this was shared by others too. It's solving problems in day-to-day life, either be at work or outside of work. That's what creativity means to me. And while we are discussing this, I was also trying to relate creativity to the McKinsey report that you shared earlier, and I was just share maybe personal and common theme that I've seen. Oftentimes people are good at doing some things, right? They're really creative in a specific focus area, or they are experts in that. And engineers or employees may hit a saturation point, right? And they would want to pivot to something else. But then organizations may not really I wouldn't say not willing, because you want to run a business and often there are timelines and things like that. When you actually expose that person to be experienced or work longer in the same focus area because they're really good at it, their creativity probably gets stunted. Yeah.
Okay. And Harthi, where do you work?
I work at Yahoo.
Great. Thank you, Harthi. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, can you hear me?
Perfectly. Yep.
Great. Yeah, this is a really interesting topic for me, because I tend to define creativity as, invention, coming up with something completely novel that no one's ever thought of or ever could have. And therefore, I tend to think that I'm not a creative person, and that's a weakness. And it's been really interesting listening to everybody else, because I think there's more to creativity maybe than that. And I'd like to be able to recognize when that's happening, both for me and for everybody that I work with.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things about creative confidence, right? We somehow convince ourselves we're not that creative, right? There's many reasons why we might do it. But I really appreciate you being open about that, right? Because it's not just about inventing something, right? There's many dimensions as we're gonna dig into. So I'm going to start with you, but I'm going to open it up to anybody. You guys are product experts. What is the most creative product that you've ever seen? Could be a current product, could be something from the past that, you've either had the privilege of working on yourself, or, you brought it into your organization to help solve problems, or maybe in your personal life. Anything that stands out at you that is it just blew your mind?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, please, if you're up for it. Absolutely.
I mean, the one that popped into my head immediately, and Alex may recognize this. So I worked for Applied Materials. I had worked for Intel. I spent a lot of time in ion implant.
Yeah.
And Applied Materials recently introduced a product called Sculpta. It is this really interesting hybrid of like an ion implant system and an etch system, where it's taking something that is really established technology, and someone just thought about implementing it a different way, and it does something very novel. And I think that's really impressive.
Very cool. So this was something that was developed internally at your own company. Very cool. And is this a fairly new product just coming into the market now?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Getting a lot of adoption recently. Yeah.
That's great. I love it. I haven't heard from Deepthi yet. So Deepthi, I'd love to hear from you before Margaret. And Harthi, is your hand up from before, or is it up now again? All right, cool. Thank you. Deepthi, please.
Yes, this is an in-house product that we have created during COVID because we were doing a remote job. So we do a quarterly planning, and we used to have sticky notes on the whiteboard for our quarterly planning. So we have created a wiper board where we can do a sticky notes kind of stuff. It's not a mural thing, but it's more of our Jira stories and our features tagged into the board, and that will automatically have the capacity planning done, and we can see like, are we up to the mark? And then those, once we have the sticky notes, it has automated filter which sprint it goes to. So that is one of the product that we have done during COVID. And I mean, it started off for our team, but eventually it is being used across our company now.
Everybody sees the value. So this, you're basically bringing what was a very, analog manual thing, and you brought this into your Scrum process, and now it's being shared across. That's great, right? And so was this something that, was out of your job scope, but you guys said, hey, someone's got to step up and do this, so let's just go ahead, and that's great. I'm sure that's very satisfying.
We have a innovation thing going on yearly once. So we just pitch in the idea, and we get the funding to work beyond our work. So that's what this came out of from.
That's good. I'm sure that's a very satisfying experience, right? To, just raise your hand and go do something because it needs to be done, and have it be so widely adopted and accepted. Congratulations. Very exciting. All right, Margaret and Bhopal, and then we're going to move on, please.
I'll keep it short. This is not within my work, but this really changed and helped my family. It's called CBT, Cognitive Behavior Therapy.
Okay.
I think it's one of the best things that has happened. It really helped my child.
Yeah.
It worked like magic without medication.
Wow.
And I really think we should do something to make it accessible to everyone. It's amazing. It's really creative the way they have done it without medication.
Yeah. Cool. I love it. Thank you for sharing that, Margaret. Bhopal, you get the last word.
Yeah. So it is one idea now, which is part of Yahoo Mail product. So it came out just as I was browsing my mailbox, and somebody has sent me a electronic gift card, and I forgot about it.
Yeah.
And I thought, so my team, my work is mail intelligence, basically building intelligence out of the mailboxes. And I thought, why can't we do it for the rest of the people? And now today it's a feature in Yahoo Mail where it figures out the gift card that you guys have lost in your mailboxes. You can take it and you can use it there.
Wow. So you're using some level of AI or machine learning to, go deep into the mailbox and find this elusive gift card that has $40 still on it, right?
Yes, and somebody sent you some content. Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
I love it. So this is great. Some of you, we're very proud of work that you've done. Some of you were building products that were part of your job. Some of you are stepping out of your role and building internal tools that help the whole company. And some of you have had, an opportunity to maybe see some innovations coming into your own family life. So very cool. All right. So let me ask you guys, if you can, who wants to share? And I'd love to hear some new voices. What were some of your key takeaways from the two readings? The first one, of course, is the Creative Confidence book by the Kelly brothers. And the second one is Setting Conditions for Anyone on Your Team to Be Creative. Anybody have any thoughts or insights coming from those two readings? They were both very short readings. I'm trying to be respectful of the fact that you guys have full-time jobs and families and all that. So I went really light.
Looks like Maggie and Gary both have their hands up.
Yeah, Maggie, hi.
Hi. I guess, again, it just goes back to general terms of creative. You think designer, you think artist. And just reminding you that everybody might be creative, even if they're quiet or not outspoken. There might be some creativity there that you just need to get to know them and see what inspires them.
That's great. So do you have any experiences personally where maybe, you looked at someone as kind of a quiet, introvert, and somehow a social opportunity, you might have traveled together or worked on a project and got to see a different dimension that allowed you to say, wow, this person's way more creative than I had perceived?
I will say a little differently. Personally, my husband is in design, is a designer, and versus me, I'm program management. So I would never think in our family, I'm the creative one, but reading that, and I start thinking all the things I've done in the job and where it probably is more the creative mindset, where I wouldn't have thought that with the confidence, oh, I'm creative. Kind of, I think Lisa was kind of saying the same thing, how you think about creativity.
Yeah, you have a new lens, right? It's like, okay, my husband's professionally, he's paid to be creative, so therefore he must be creative, and therefore I must not be because I'm paid to be a detail person. Yeah,
correct.
Absolutely, that's great. Thank you so much, Gary. Hey,
hi, Michael. Good evening. So reading them, it was very interesting. It kind of breaks down barriers of like what it means to be creative. Like you've covered this. But it also, there's a step-by-step process in order to encourage people to bring out their creativity side.
Right.
And that was what I found interesting, the whole explanation, or, the psychotherapy with the snakes and stuff like that. I could totally comprehend with that, but like the process of actually how to, unleash the rest of your creative mind was interesting. So.
Yeah, so there was a pretty simple process, right? To just sort of guide someone along to a level of mastery.
Yeah.
I agree. It was very, the fact the snake analogy was quite unique, right?
Yeah.
Not sure if I'd go through that therapy personally, but it was pretty, it was definitely got my attention.
Exactly.
Thank you, Gary. Hey, Lisa.
Yeah, for me, creativity or needing to be creative feels a lot like I hear writer's block described. Like you're staring at a blank page or you're staring into a black hole.
Right.
And I'll have to read the articles again, because even after, for the first time through, it still feels like staring into a black hole. Like there were these simple sounding steps, and I'm like, I feel like there's a step zero. So it's a really challenging situation.
Yeah. And sometimes step zero was going for a walk in nature. It's going for a run. It's taking yourself to a movie. It's reading a book that has nothing to do at all with your job. Right. And just sort of, giving you some distance from, the day to day. Right. And I know I'll come back from a run or a hike completely refreshed, and my mind has been reset. Right. So I think sometimes that might be the step zero. Right. And that gives you the willingness to then engage in the rest of the process, Absolutely. That's great. Thank you, Lisa. Abhishek, hi.
Hey, hi. Oh, so again, when we have heard a lot about creativity, and creativity comes in a lot of different ways: process improvements, developer experience, new innovation, out-of-box ideas, a lot of other things. Now, I will give one recent example, and actually the second point set the conditions. And actually, like I have been blessed in mostly that when I work with whoever my managers or leaders were, I had that open culture that I could always go and talk to them, and they were like, hey, I have an idea. And recently, it's now almost 6 months, but now that project is a funded project. But then there was one system which we were building, and then there was another system which was already in use. And they were like, okay, this whatever is in use, it's expensive, costly. And in order to migrate to new one, you may have to shuffle around a bit this new system itself to make it migrate over. And then I was like, one day I was sitting and I had an idea like, hey, we can just do that. And then because of the open culture, I reached out to my leader, like, hey, I have this idea. And then the first thing he said that, do you think it's worth it? So, which is like, the fear of like those 3 or 4, I think the fear of like the first step or the messy unknown, like another, like, hey, I believe I can do it. Let me try it out. And then they allowed me like, okay, go ahead and try out. Then I tried, and then, hey, this POC works. And I'm like, okay, do you think now that it can work out for everyone, which is the next step after that working? Like, well, hey, I have now this entire, let me work on the overall experience, how the developers will start using this. And currently it is, everybody is migrating to that. So culture allows you to do all of those things if you, and so open culture and the creativity ideas. So
you got the initial support, right? Obviously they asked you a very fair question. Do you think you can do it? But when you said yes, there was enough confidence in your answer that they gave you the green light. And, and that in and of itself boosts your own creative confidence, right? And then you take that first experimental step and you prove it out, right? So beautiful example. Thank you. Awesome. All right. So let's, we're going to keep pushing forward here. So, so we talked about some of the takeaways, right? So the loss of creative confidence, if you've never seen this video, it was, before we had, hip hop stars that were getting, hundreds of millions of views on YouTube. This guy was kind of the original rock star, right? He had like 22 million views on YouTube, right? And so Ken Robinson, a British educator, does a brilliant job of describing why schools need to embrace creativity. And some of you may know the woman, Esther Wojcicki. Esther is a good friend of Berkeley. She's a good friend of mine. She was California Teacher of the Year. And she has, and you may know her daughters. One of her daughters was the CEO of YouTube. One of her daughters is the CEO of 23andMe. Google was started in her garage. And Esther is considered the godmother of Silicon Valley, and she's been an educator her entire career. And her entire life's work has been all about, not taking creativity out of these young kids. And she's become a world-renowned figure. She's published multiple books, right? And so, there's been an antidote, right? Robinson kind of set off this clarion call. We need to change how we educate young kids. And people like Esther from, the Berkeley community have stepped up, and she's in demand all around the world. And in her mid-80s, she's still traveling the world, sharing her philosophy and her approach. But, what we see, and has anybody ever done the marshmallow challenge? Is this something anyone has ever done?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. What's amazing is that, you get very limited resources. Okay, you get 18 minutes, and you have to build the tallest freestanding structure out of 20 sticks of spaghetti. We all know how brittle spaghetti can be. 3 feet of tape, 3 feet of string, and a marshmallow. And the only rule is the marshmallow has to sit on top. So let me ask you guys, how, if you were to think about the group that is the most effective, would it be a group of CEOs? Would it be a group of lawyers? Would it be a group of children? Any of those groups stand out at you as having unique ability to win this very simple but very telling marshmallow challenge?
Kids.
The kids, yeah.
The kids win. The kids kick ass, okay? And the CEOs, it turns out, well, you know who comes in the worst, okay? The absolute worst, guess who the worst are?
The lawyers.
Well, the MBAs, the MBAs get the worst score, right? No surprise. Lawyers come in second worst because the lawyers just want to argue, okay? And so what we, and this has been repeated time and again, hundreds and hundreds of times. And there's actually a very compelling TED Talk about this experience. But these kids are not afraid to try. And if it falls down, they just keep going. So while the MBAs are, all the testosterone is being thrown around the table, and they're all trying to, exhibit alpha male dominance, right? And they're all trying to control the agenda. And, they spend 17 of 18 minutes arguing. The kids just start building stuff. Okay. And if it doesn't work, it's like no harm, no foul. We're just gonna, we're gonna pick up where we left off, and we learn something, and we have no ego, we have no fear. We're just gonna build stuff, right? And it's just a really fascinating, simple way of validating that we are born creatively, that it is something that is innate in all of us. And unfortunately, for many of us, for whatever reason, both educational and maybe parental experience, etc., we've lost a lot of that skill, but it can be reclaimed. And that's an important part of tonight's discussion, right? And this goes back a little bit to Lisa, and it goes back to Maggie, right? People who believe they lack creativity, one of the things they say is, I don't draw very well. As if somehow drawing is the be all and end all of creativity, right? If I'm not a really great sketch artist, then I must not be creative, as if that in and of itself is the very definition of what it means to be creative. And of course, we know that is complete nonsense, right? So these are the fears that hold us back. These are, Lisa talked about step 0, and these are the steps 1 through 4. We're afraid of the unknown, right? And listen, I'm an engineer, and I know we all want to know exactly where we're going. We all want to know if I put X of energy into this, I'm going to get Y of output out. But, creativity is nonlinear. It's messy. If you're not being creative, then you may not fail. But if you're being creative, you're gonna hit the wall. It's inevitable, right? God forbid we come up with an idea that is outside of the norm, people might judge us as if we've lost our minds. We're afraid of the first step. And so I love this cartoon from the New Yorker. Did you know that it was Harry that came up with the idea for the daiquiri? He just never did anything with it. Now that's a bit tongue in cheek, and you got to love New Yorker cartoons. But I see this all the time. People will be telling me for years, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to start this company. I'm going to try to create this new product or this new experience. And then they just don't do it. It's amazing to me. Where they're afraid of losing control. And all of us engineers, we love to be in control, right? We love to have the opportunity to control things. So this is some of the stuff. Yeah, hey, please, Chris.
Yeah, actually, one thing I'm surprised I don't see on the list. What about self-confidence? Because doesn't self-confidence also prevent people from a lot of this as well, in addition to these fears? I mean, does self-confidence rank in here at all?
Yeah, I have a suspicion that self-confidence is actually underlying all of these. That if you did have self-confidence, you would not be afraid of the unknown. You would not be afraid of being judged.
Sure.
Okay. Right. Ask Elon Musk if he's afraid of being judged. Okay. The answer is not in a million years. Right. So I think you've landed on something that is at sort of the foundation of all of this stuff. You know. So how do we break down fear of jumping in, right? And this goes back to what my friend with the brogue said, Gary. Gary, where's that brogue from, by the way?
I'm living in Baltimore, but I'm originally from Ireland. I'm off the boat about 12 years now.
Okay, but don't lose that brogue, okay? It's magic. Okay, keep it. Right. But as Gary said, right, he talked about the psychological example of getting people comfortable of being in the same room with a snake and then touching a snake. You break challenges down into small steps, right? And this was what Abhishek said, right? He had a big idea. He had the opportunity to go and talk with his leadership team. He was given the green light to give it a shot. He broke it down into the first step was the pilot, and he succeeded, and he continues on his way. So how do you allow the people on your team to incrementally, but materially over time, gain confidence in their own creative skills and to feel like they're contributing more to the outcome? And then and then they're more engaged, right? So I think about the pride that I heard from Deepthi, right? The pride of, coming up with a novel approach to a solution, a tool that now is used by everyone, right? And how does that not endear you to the company, right? How does that not make you feel more connected to the community, to the mission of the company, right? And she was given the space, I'm sure, with teammates to do this. Omid?
Yeah, I was just thinking there's another fear. Maybe it's a fear of failure, but I'm not just. Let me explain what I mean. Like, if I have Abhishek, he mentioned, okay, he had a good idea. He went to his manager and then brought it up to them, and then okay, but if his manager would turn him down, what would be the consequence? Okay. Nothing. I don't think anything bad would happen to Abhishek. He would continue doing his normal work. But I'm thinking, like, if I have an idea, like I want to start my own company, what do I need to? But basically, I cannot. I don't think it's doable, or it's gonna be extremely difficult to do my daily job here at Samsung and at the same time running a standalone company.
Yeah, so, and that's not fear. That's not fear. You're just being very practical, right? I mean, running a startup is insane, right?
Exactly.
I don't think that's fear. I think that's like, I've got to prioritize my life, right? Sleep comes in handy every once in a while, right?
And then adding to that is just that, okay, if I quit my job here at Samsung, I'm not going to say, I have a wife, I have my kids. So it's going to have a very bad, I mean, if I'm not successful, so it's going to be very bad consequences for them, for everyone.
Yeah.
So I think that becomes a very important part of making your decisions.
Well, listen,
how you want to do the next step.
I mean, obviously you're talking about a profound life change, right? A profound career change, life change, economic change, right? But even the fear of failing internally, right? Not thinking about leaving to start a company, but in Samsung, right? I'm afraid of starting this new project, right? I have this novel idea, but I'm afraid I'm going to fail. So I don't want to fail. So therefore I'm not going to start, right? So a little bit of the fear of the first step, but yeah. And listen, what you said though, I mean, my God, starting a company, you got to be half crazy, right? I mean, I'm certifiable. Like they keep a straitjacket at my office, right? You can't start 8 companies and not be crazy. I can't imagine doing that while holding down a full-time job. I mean, that would be beyond amazing. Okay. So the message though is that creative confidence can be reclaimed, but it's like any other muscle. And so I want to just, I'm sure a lot of you may not remember the name of this unique approach to high jumping. Okay. But this is called the Fosbury flop. And when this was first used in the Olympics by a guy named Dick Fosbury, it was very unconventional, right? There were no rules that said that you had to jump over it face first and that you had to somehow get your legs high enough in this scissor position that you had to clear it. And Dick Fosbury said, you know what? There's another way to do this. And wouldn't you know, he got the gold medal. And he completely changed the way that people approach this track and field exercise. Okay. Anybody recognize this young man? This is an old school Golden State Warriors. Nobody ever, you guys are too young.
Rick Barry, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Rick Barry. He's pretty muscular, but what's Rick Barry doing? He is shooting a free throw underhanded. Now, do you see a lot of people taking underhanded free throws in the NBA? Does Steph Curry do that? No. Barry decided that he was a much more effective free throw shooter, shooting underhand, right? He is known, in the history of the NBA, there have been very few people that have done this, but he was the most precise free throw shooter in the history of the NBA when he retired. Okay. Very novel. No one said you can't take an underhand shot. I realize that, this is something that a lot of young kids do because they don't have the strength to shoot overhand, but Barry turned this into his signature move. And when the opposing team was called for a technical, it was Rick Barry that was going out to the line to shoot the free throw. Okay. So just a very different approach. Anybody recognize this troop? And again, it's hard. It was hard to give something that was obvious. This is Cirque du Soleil. Cirque du Soleil completely reinvented the circus experience. And then they had one hell of a run. Okay. They just reimagined what a circus experience would be. Okay. MIT, they have this Smarter Cities group. And they're reimagining what it's like to live in in a high rise in an urban center with these insane increases in the cost of rent. And so they have designed a 200 square foot apartment that feels like a 600 square foot apartment because the walls move, the ceilings move, and you're able to, with the push of a button, completely reconfigure in seconds the layout, the configuration of the room. So when you want to go to sleep, that space becomes a bedroom and the Murphy bed rolls out. If you want to eat, right, the kitchen expands. If you want to have a party late at night, have your friends over, everything becomes the living room, right? And so no one said you can't move walls, right? And so if you can give someone the sense that they're living in a space that's 4x what it is, it's a very novel approach. Anybody recognize this logo? My Indian friends must. This is the Indian Space and Research Organization that just had a successful landing on the South Pole of the moon. And they spent a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of what the US or other more, traditionally advanced economies spend. This is frugal innovation at its best. India owns frugal innovation. Okay. To me, this is a very novel approach. How do we start with a limited budget and we land on the moon while the Russians crash into the moon, spending way more money than we did. Okay. Now, on a very different note, another frugal innovation experience is something I know that Aaron knows because I've shared this one before. At the very early days of COVID, I was asked by Mass General Hospital and Harvard Medical School to create a design challenge to create a ICU class ventilator that would price at no more than 2,500 USD, that had an open source license, that was non-exclusive, that could be manufactured using off-the-shelf parts anywhere in the world. And what was amazing is the team that won was a group of 32 recently graduated engineers from Smith College, an all-girls college, a liberal arts college, by the way, in Western Massachusetts. They could not spell ventilator until they decided they were going to jump into this project. And their professor, Susan Howe, is just an incredible leader. And they were able to put together a process where they were dispersed all over the world, and they were able to create the winning product. And by the way, other teams that participated were SpaceX, Tesla, the U.S. Department of Energy, the Stanford Department of Mechanical Engineering, Stanford Medical School, and Accenture. Okay. And this group of 32 young women with their professor mentor won. Now, the reason I shared it, right? So this was, again, a frugal innovation, $2,500, manufactured anywhere in the world, right? So these, I hope, are things that inspire you, right? They looked at things. And of course, you may not recognize, but when Steve Jobs went to Xerox PARC for that famous tour he took, where he saw the future, this is what he was looking at. And he said, okay, we're going to change computing. We're going to move away from that horrific Microsoft MS-DOS green command line, and we're going to do GUI. Okay, this is how we're going to approach the world. And this is kind of what the Apple Lisa, the GUI, the primitive original GUI looked like. Okay, and then here was an ad that showed for the first time the use of a mouse with a computer and a graphical user interface, right? That's a novel approach. Okay, that's a novel approach. That flywheel, right? The product on the left was the Diamond Rio, which died an undignified death. Okay. And of course, this was an important part. How do we make this intuitive? This was the iTunes component came in. And then this just completely changed everything. This is a product that sold 2.5 billion units. And there's no sign of slowing down, right? So yeah, everybody's got a keyboard. We don't. We're going to use a touchscreen. Okay. So what I would like to do is, we don't have a lot of time, but I would like to ask, Aaron, is it easy to put people into breakout rooms? Is that a quick process? Now you're not muted on the screen, but I don't hear you.
I definitely was muted. Sorry. Yeah, I can easily create breakout rooms. I'm trying to count how many. Got 26. Okay, we can maybe, how many breakout rooms would you like?
Well, I would like to have the teams that are working, that are already, signed, just jump into the rooms. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'll create those.
Easy, right? So guys, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to take 15 minutes. I know that you are thinking about what project you may want to work on, right? Is that an accurate understanding? You're still thinking about the project, right? I would like to ask you to take 15 minutes to each of you come up with a project or product, something in the market that you believe you could radically transform, right? You could bring a completely new approach to this product, first principles approach, whether it's the Fosbury flop or the Cirque du Soleil approach. How do we just turn this thing on its head? And is there a way that we can take a very, very robust creative approach to redefining this product? And then come back with a spokesperson. You've assigned a spokesperson, and come back with what you believe are your one or two most interesting ideas that you would like to continue to pursue. Okay? That's what I would like to ask you to do, is take 15 minutes, no ideas are bad ideas, generate as many ideas as you can. Is there anything that really gets people's hearts beating faster in the room that, man, we really want to work on this? This would be really cool, right? Because Aaron is going to provide you with a very safe space here to innovate, right? This is something where, you're going to obviously get a lot of coaching from Gigi and others, right? So this is something where you have a lot of time to really think this through. But I would love to ask you guys to step out of your comfort zones just a little bit, push your thinking, and try to reframe the world as you see it. Okay? So I'm going to leave you to Aaron's unique ability to teleport you into an alternate universe for the next 15 minutes. Then you'll come back and report out, okay? Cool.
What I'll do is open up the rooms and you should be able to self-select into your specific team. So here we go.
Cool.
This is good. Okay.
So how you doing, my friend? Okay.
Great. Yourself? Looking forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, a couple weeks. Absolutely. So have you hit your target? You got your 100 people signed up?
We got 100.
That's
looks like
great.
we will have a little room for a little more. So I'm inviting some other experts to join as well. So it should be a fun time.
Sounds good. So when will you arrive?
I'll actually arrive on Sunday. I work in Miami for a few days and then kick it off on Wednesday, the 27th.
Okay. But so when does the dinner start? Is it Wednesday night or Tuesday night, right? The dinner is Tuesday night, I think.
The first dinner is going to be Wednesday evening.
Wednesday evening. Okay. All right. So I'm with you Thursday, Friday. That's right. I'm with you all day Thursday, Friday. So I'll be there for dinner Wednesday and then all day Thursday, Friday, and then racing. And what's ironic, Aaron, is I'm heading to San Francisco.
Yeah, for the blues festival.
Yeah, the Hardly Strictly Bluegrass. And they just published the lineup. It's going to be amazing. It's just going to be amazing.
And you said you're going with your brother,
I haven't
right?
missed it. What's that?
Right? You say you're going with your brother?
Yeah, my brother's celebrating his 40th. So, I had got the Airbnb and I got him plane tickets and stuff. So he's going to get there a day early now, but he was very understanding. I said, hey, I really don't want to miss this event. So he's going to head out by himself and I'll meet him there late Friday night. We'll have all day Saturday and Sunday. So it'll be great. Yeah. Awesome. Abhishek, hello.
Oh,
Did
no,
you get voted out?
Should we have been in some breakout room or this is the same breakout room? I mean,
No. You were in the main room now, brother.
Yeah. You got to self-select into your team.
Yeah.
To be able to choose that.
Yeah.
Chris might be in the same.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure where I select. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There we go. Sarah, do you know where to select your breakout room?
Hi, Mike. I'm actually not a participant. I'm a course coordinator, so just helping.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay, cool. Very nice to meet you. Are you a student at Berkeley?
I am. Before I introduce myself, let me see if I can help Chris.
Yeah, please
Chris,
go ahead.
Do you see the 3 dots that say more underneath? Oh, okay. There we go. It seems like you may have figured it out.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just actually finished at Berkeley in May, and I'm just helping out with this program. I was a course coordinator for Schwo and Gorick.
Oh, cool.
Spring, and also helped out with Decode, so have met you there once before.
Oh, did we meet there?
Yes.
I'm so sorry that I don't remember. It is a bit crazy, as you know.
It's all good. I don't blame you, even the slightest. But
That's
great to see you again.
Great. So what do you hope to do now that you've graduated? What's the plan?
Well, I'm in the process of applying to graduate school. And I just am very passionate about entrepreneurship, innovation, sustainability.
Yeah.
And cross-functional teams.
Okay. So what program do you think will allow you to kind of satisfy all of those different interests?
Mike and Sarah, do you mind if I interject real quick? I'm sorry.
Oh, please.
One group, they're expressing or trying to conversate over a brand new idea or the ones they are thinking on for their team project?
Well, I mean, anything that they believe they could completely reimagine. It could be something that they're thinking about, but more likely it's going to be something they haven't been thinking about, would be my guess.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Mike, Sarah, Mike, sorry for.
Okay, no worries.
No worries. Thank you.
And Ben is now with us. I don't know if Ben is a member of the class, but Ben, do you know how to move into a breakout room? Okay.
Sorry, I dropped out for a while. I'm going back to my team.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so Sarah, what kind of program is attracting you right now?
Yeah, so right now my most the program that interests me most is a dual degree in business and law.
Okay,
Because
wow.
I've noticed that pretty much anything to do with business, the foundation essentially has to do with the law. And I just think that understanding
Yeah. Okay.
Understanding the law would really help to create businesses and sustain businesses.
Okay. So you're thinking of largely a 3-year program, an MBA and a law degree at the same time. So that could be Berkeley, it could be Stanford, could be Harvard. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Okay.
And,
Columbia.
Yeah, Columbia is also one of my top choices right now. So that's what I'm working towards at the moment.
So are you in the middle of the application process?
Essentially.
Well, I wish you the best with that.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Cool. So you know how to collaborate. You're working with Aaron and ELPP, and you're working with Decode. So you're working with 2 great communities. Yeah, good stuff.
Yes. Yeah. SCET is a really great community that I've been a part of ever since I joined Cal.
Yeah.
And I still am, and it's been great.
Well, I just saw yesterday, Berkeley is now the #1 creator of startups of including Stanford, right? So you guys edge past Stanford, but and Berkeley's been gaining on Stanford, and it was inevitable it was going to happen. But it is an amazing thing to be here in Boston because MIT used to be so dominant, and they just keep losing ground. And I just think the hustle culture at Berkeley is unique. I really do. And I think SCET certainly plays a big role in that. So it's a very exciting place to be. It really is. What a wonderful place to get a degree. And if you wind up going to, Haas for an MBA and Bolt for the law school, you could do a whole lot worse, right? Yeah, you could do a whole lot worse. And you remain in this vibrant community, which you're not going to get at Columbia, for example, right? It's just a different world.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been a big debate in my mind, because even just considering early decision versus regular decision, and being a double bear versus building a new community in a whole new environment.
Yeah, big decisions, right? Life
very
is
big decisions.
Absolutely.
But it means a lot hearing that from you, because I know your perspective is very multifaceted, and I value your insight. So thanks for
Listen, you can't,
that.
if you get into any of these schools, you cannot, that none of these are all good decisions. Okay. They're all good decisions. And I would be happy to be a sounding board if you are blessed with multiple offers and you have to go through the challenge of making that decision. I promise you, I would love to be a sounding board if I could be helpful. Okay.
That means a lot. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Take you up on it. Hopefully I do find myself in that position where
I suspect you will. Anybody that volunteers for Decode and ELPP and all that stuff, you are obviously intentional.
Thank you for saying
It could be an opportunity for you two to meet. I'm not sure, Mike, were you able to connect with Vicky about the Emerging Management Tech Week?
Yeah, she's got a completely full slate at this point. Yeah, I will be out for Decode regardless. Having our annual, conference, and as you know, they've always been tied together. So I'll be coming out regardless. But yeah, she's got a full slate. She looks like she's working both with IE, so ICLOC is involved.
Yeah, that's right.
And she's working with CK HSB, I guess. I never remember. Yeah. So she's got a full slate. Yeah.
Yeah, they're working on a cross collaboration between IE and the CalAS program between IE and the ELPP. So we might be having a little hybrid situation where we need to go to Spain for
that's exciting.
Terrible. Sounds terrible.
You got to take one for the team, right? So
I was sacrifices, my man. Sacrifice.
Yeah. I was in Madrid on they had their 25th annual Venture Day in July, and I got to give the keynote at that event.
I remember,
and I will tell you that I spent an entire day with the 11 finalists of the Venture Lab.
Yeah,
it's a very, very strong community. I mean, Paris has done a brilliant job, right? It really is the entrepreneurial magnet in Europe. I was very impressed. I wasn't expecting to meet the consistent caliber of the teams that I had met. I was really impressed. So I think, you couldn't go wrong with the collaboration. Yeah.
Madrid, you say, not Barcelona?
It was in Madrid. Yeah. That's where the home base is, right? They have two campuses in Madrid. They have the traditional campus and they have this tower, this, high-rise tower. And IE is a very wealthy private university. And so they've taken all of the oxygen out of the room in Spain, right? You had IESA and you had ASADA, right? And they were all very highly ranked.
Yeah.
And IE has been really disrupting the industry, right? They've got a lot of cash. They're not afraid to spend it. They make that's how they recruited ICLOC, obviously, right? They said, okay, you want to open up a new engineering science school? We're gonna recruit you. So they're fearless. They're really fearless. I'm very impressed with them.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
I also had a chance to visit IE this summer because I was helping out with the summer abroad program.
Yeah.
With SET, and it was. I think they have a Madrid campus and Segovia.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I didn't get a chance to visit the Madrid location. Okay. But when in July were you there?
Yeah, July, I think my keynote was the 13th. So I was there for an entire week, like the 11th to the 18th or something like that.
Gotcha.
And it was hot as hell there. It was
it was absolutely unreal.
And I had to give my keynote outside in the blazing sun. Yeah. Yeah. 5 minutes left, Aaron. Yeah. Okay. So I was wearing sunglasses for that one. And
that is quite a sacrifice.
Oh, it was crazy. It was so hot. But Madrid is a phenomenal city, right? It is such a sophisticated European city. I love it. Yeah, that's great. So Aaron, if you were to do this collaboration, what would be the basis of SCE?
I think it's already happening. What they're going to do is kick off sort of that catalyst program, the joint program between the ELPP and ICLOC's IE school at the ETM, because he's going to be around for that week of the ETM, right, teaching the ELPP again. The first exposure or in-person consideration at Cal, and then wrap up in Madrid or Segovia for the graduation ceremony in April or February. One of the two.
Okay, cool. Yeah, very cool. So is this the global ELPP program then? Is that what it is?
It's different. It's more of a custom. They're going to nominate or sponsor individuals from a particular enterprise or organization, which I don't. As that's not more of an open enrollment, but more of a custom.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's what a wonderful partnership, right? And ICLOC has apparently hired some great faculty members there, and he looked really. I don't ever remember him looking so relaxed. Okay, he looked really relaxed.
Right?
Yeah, he looked relaxed. There's a lot of politics at Berkeley. Okay. I know he was dealing with a lot of stuff, and I get the sense that he left a lot of that behind.
Good.
Good. Yeah. So I could see on him, he looked like he was like 5 years younger, and he looked a lot more relaxed,
Bounce in a step. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you enjoy any good Spanish wine?
Oh my God. I mean, just the Spanish cuisine is amazing. Yeah. And Paris and his boss are wine aficionados. Okay? In fact, his boss is a very wealthy man who I think his family generations owns a vineyard.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So this man knows his wine. Yeah.
Right there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, the cuisine there was just mind-bending. I mean, so we have sweet greens. They have something called honest greens, which makes sweet greens look like a joke. I mean,
I've got sweet greens waiting on the right now.
Yeah. I mean, sweet greens is fine in America, but let me tell you, the Spanish take it to some IE alumni actually said, okay, I'm going to reimagine sweet greens for European taste. And he came up with honest greens.
Wow.
Phenomenal, right? The fresh fish, it was amazing. I probably ate there 4 times that week. Yeah. It was so good. Yeah. And that's a chain. That was a chain.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Should I call the people back in? We got about 2 minutes.
Let's just so they have time to report out. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. I'll broadcast that we are reconvening in 60 seconds.
Yeah. And they're grouped by team number. So if I call team 1, they'll respond to team 1. Okay.
Cool. Sure will.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried Honest Screens in Portugal as well. I was very impressed. I went
Yeah.
back multiple times.
You did as well, huh? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The decor is much nicer, right? It's much more sophisticated. They have all the fresh pressed juices. They have incredibly fresh fish.
And amazing hours.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and the lines are just insane, right? They move, but the lines are insane. Yeah.
What was the Portuguese equivalent, Sarah?
Same company, Honest Screens.
Oh,
yeah.
in Spain
And
and- okay.
let's also just give a moment to talk about their espresso.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Great coffee. Anyway, great chatting with you, Mike. And
Yeah,
Eric.
such a pleasure to reconnect. And I wish you the best with your application. And I mean it. If you need a sounding board, just come find me. We must be on LinkedIn if we met at
Yes, we are. I actually tried reposting your amazingly well-worded shout out about Berkeley's being the top university for venture-backed startups.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't let me. So I was only able to repost Laura's since that was
that's
the
weird.
original
Okay,
poster.
that's very strange.
But
Yeah.
yes, we are connected there.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, everybody, welcome back. So we are, I guess the people are coming back slowly as I watch the ticker. But team one, you are going to go first. So if anybody from team one is with us at this point, I'm assuming that you have identified a spokesperson. And is the team one spokesperson here now?
I am.
Yep.
Awesome, Alex. Okay. And I love your background there. So Alex, I guess I'd just love to ask you to just take a couple of minutes and share one or two potential ideas for a project and what it is about those ideas that get you guys excited.
Okay. We had an idea for a product that's kind of a take on something existing.
Yeah.
And it's called Kids Uber. So, as a parent, we have kids that their lifestyles and social schedules are far in excess of anything that we ever had when we were 10 years old. It's amazing how many things they're doing. And since now you have a disproportionate amount of families where both parents are working, it's really a challenge to kind of get them, they get out of school at 3:30, they got to get to soccer practice, parents are working till 5 or 6. How do you manage all that? So we have this idea for a company very similar to Uber, but it's only the only clients can be children between, say, the ages of 6 and 16. So you call, they pick them up from school, drive them to their activity. The drivers are all background checked. They go through a process, similar to what a teacher or a school bus driver would go through to make sure they're safe. We also introduced a little bit more technology with the idea of maybe like a low-cost tracking band, kind of similar to like the Find My iPhone, where your kid wears it. You see that he gets in the car. You can tell that the driver's not speeding because you can see the velocities going. Gets to get the soccer practice, gets out. You can see them running around in the field, all superimposed on a Google Earth map.
Right.
And there is something like this that exists to our knowledge. I think it's a very small company with like 3 moms that started it in the Bay Area.
Right.
But we really want to expand the market and probably start out going into a whole city, maybe then expand to the country, and then possibly could you expand worldwide? I
love it. And first of all, the need is universal, right? I was in Azerbaijan, and even in a small country like Azerbaijan, they are really struggling. It's become a very crowded city, and they struggle. Parents, dual income, dual work couples, they can't get their kids, and it completely disrupts their work life. So what I would say is this is brilliant, right? And think about the level of trust that Airbnb had to create, right? This is all about trust. Okay. And so, if you optimize this for and I don't think there's ever a need for a higher level of trust than allowing your child to be with quote unquote a stranger, right? So I think that, like couch surfing versus Airbnb, right? Couch surfing was just a bunch of stoners that were, trying to create a network of places where you can hang out on somebody's couch if you were traveling, right? Airbnb was a serious business. So 3 moms is the couch surfing analogy, and you guys are the Airbnb analogy, if you will, although obviously this is an Uber play. But I think this is a universally important problem. And I think, Uber did a brilliant job of starting in a couple of zip codes in San Francisco, right? Proving its value developing a significant level of trust and then slowly expanding at first. Right. And I think Airbnb is another great roadmap for how you expand. And both of these were very much trust-based. Although I think, and obviously Airbnb is unique because it's your house, it's your most expensive possession. So I think there's a lot to be learned from those two companies. I think it's a brilliant idea. And I suspect you would raise money on this idea. So very cool. Awesome.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
you. All right. Team 2.
Okay. I'm going to speak for team 2. So we came up with something that is also kind of an evolution of something that exists. Which would be an AI adaptable sound canceling headset. So not noise canceling.
Right.
Noise canceling, anybody who's had it on a plane, right? It cancels the engines, but you're still hearing the conversation next to you or the kid screaming back there.
Yes.
So something in this would be, I think, really well integrated with AR or VR. You could have a headset that is, maybe glasses and an earpiece we talked about, or even, maybe a conductive vibration where it tracks your attention. So for example, you're at a restaurant, it knows that you're looking at the person across from you. Maybe you've trained it that that's your spouse and you, presumably want to hear what they have to say. Right? Maybe you could train it otherwise for the day. But it really canceled, like, the cone of silence, right? Like, I don't have to hear anybody else. They don't have to hear me. Or maybe I'm on a hike and somebody brought a Bluetooth speaker, which is a personal hatred, right? I want to hear the birds in the waterfall. I don't want to hear the Bluetooth speaker. Or there's a police car coming. You need to be able to hear that. This learns that and knows, it makes that decision for you that you want to hear it. And it seems like that should be possible to do with the right technology.
Yeah, it's a very cool idea, right? I mean, I think about noise pollution, right? Just, fire trucks going by the house when you're on a call, or, screaming babies on the plane back from India, that, it doesn't matter how loud you put your music or how far you push your little malleable ear plug in, right? The screaming baby does not go away, and sleeping becomes. So I think it's a really great idea. And obviously you guys have the technical chops to figure out whether you can actually make it work. So very cool. Thank you. Thank you. Team 3.
Yeah, I'll be speaking for team 3. So it's been a couple of years I went to India. So in my recent trip, I have seen how India has been outgrown in all the aspects. So the one that fascinated me was the QR code to purchase anything. There's no cash transactions. There is no need of any debit card or a credit card. It is directly associated with your bank. Or you can put some money in that app and you can do the transaction, which is a very innovative, I would say. I felt like, wow, this is perfect because it is safer. Nobody can steal anything from you. And I thought we don't have it here, that kind of thing. So I thought that would be a very good project to see the value over here in US.
Yeah, I mean, I love it, right? You're cross-pollinating, right? So yeah, as I was in India last week, we went out to a number of temples, including a UNESCO site. And I was shocked that even people that were, in little food carts selling fruit, right? Or selling bottles of water, they all had the QR code, right? So you don't need cash. You don't have to exchange for rupees, right? And in America, we like to think we're so advanced, but our banking system is so far behind so much of the world, right? So I think that's a very interesting idea. So is the rest of the team excited about that?
Yeah, we were. Even though it existed, the technology exists today, not at the scale like it operates in country like in India, across Asia, to be honest.
Is it across Asia? Yeah, today?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I think China's doing the same thing. They don't really use
Right. So the challenge is not the technology, right? It's really the regulatory environment and the ability to kind of get, the financial system to adopt it. That would be where the innovation would come in, right?
Right.
I had a trip back to India, to China. I actually had a problem finding an ATM.
Yeah. No one uses cash anymore, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the world has completely blown by the US on our banking system. Okay, we are a laggard for sure. So, I mean, so the question becomes, you know, by doing innovation around sort of regulation and the banking system, you know, just I would just make sure that you guys are aware of what, you know, what you are about to encounter, right? Where the other people are coming up with sort of new products that are fairly well understood. You know, banking regulation is the stuff of experts. So, while I think it would be a brilliant contribution if you could transform the U.S. financial system and the payment system, I just want you to be aware of, you know, this is going to be some interesting stuff that you're going to have to learn about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, cool. Did you have another idea on the team? Was this the one, or did you have a second idea? And if this is it, that's okay. This is fine. I
no,
just
we have ideas, but it is not the one, like, you know, that is existing and we want to like, you know, redesign it or something like that. But we do have a fresh ideas, a couple of them.
That's great. But because I want to be respectful of your time and we're already a couple minutes over. Thank you, Deepthi. All right, we're going to go to team 4.
Hi. Yeah, we are team 4, and then we come up with the idea to replace the boarding pass. So, for example, the idea is coming from my recent travel out of country. So basically, when you go to the boarding gate, most of the time people would be frustrated about like to get the cell phone out and then at the same time take a lot of luggages, and especially with kids during traveling. So the idea is that when we are doing the confirmation of my airline ticket, maybe we can do actually a facial recognition using our cell phone, because we will do the confirmation anyways, right? So we will have the option for the user to do their own facial recognition, use the cell phone, and then at the gate, people do not need to use any of the device to go through the boarding gate. Because we already passed the security gate check, so there is no problem to at the gate to just do the facial recognition and then easily get the boarding process much faster.
So Lufthansa is doing that already. Lufthansa is doing that already.
Oh, really? Okay, sorry.
No boarding pass.
Let me know that.
It was actually very creepy because you go to the thing and it just scans your face and lets you on the plane, and you wonder how they got your face in the first place.
Lufthansa, and I was going to echo what Al said. So I fly Lufthansa fairly regularly, and I remember being shocked the first time. I was in the lounge, and they opened up the gate from the lounge directly to the boarding gate, and I walked out, and I'm fumbling for my passport and my boarding pass. So you don't need it. I said, I don't. You know, this is a German airline, and you're not going to check my documents. It was like, wow. But So, you know, but again, it's only Lufthansa, which means maybe it's a challenge for others to adopt. And then, of course, I would look at what they're doing in Israel, right? Because iris scanning in Israel they've just taken it to an art form. So you may be inspired by what the Israelis have done, where, you know, I've been there enough times that I just go up and I don't even have to talk to the passport officer. They just scan my irises and I'm in. Right. So there may be, so I think it's a very good idea, right? I remember seeing so many families traveling, right? And, you know, a lot of very large families and you know, they're juggling strollers and backpacks and
that's
toys and bottles and, you know, and it's like they're trying to juggle 44 things, right? So I think it would be a real contribution. But you have a couple of reference points, I think, that you could find some insights on. Okay. Great stuff. You guys have done a great job of identifying a lot of just pain in the ass processes that you want to completely reinvent. So you guys really took this seriously. Thank you. All right. And last but not least, team number 5.
Hi, my name is Devasis.
Hey, Devasis.
Maggie, Milan, and I came up with an app for, you know, homeless people. I mean, it's not totally for homeless people, but people who can assist homeless to get a shelter. So San Francisco has a lot of problems in terms of, you know, homelessness, and would like to develop. I mean, there is a lawsuit today about that, removing temporary shelters or temporary tents from San Francisco. So we were kind of brainstorming to have an app that can monitor and provide temporary shelters to homeless folks who are there, and constantly checking how they're doing. And of course, until the permanent solution is made, I think state government is doing something in terms of building tiny houses and stuff.
Yeah.
So and until then, they need shelters and stuff like that. This so Milan came up with an idea with an app that can track, and yeah, I think we didn't fully flesh through all this everything. But Maggie, anything to add?
No,
okay,
I think we struggled. We were trying to come up and try to be creative, but
okay. But if I understand the idea, right? So obviously you're advocating for the health and well-being of the homeless, and you're saying, there's a bridge here, right? We're moving toward tiny houses or other forms of housing, but in the short term, they're still, they need to live in shelters, right? Or centers.
Right.
And so you want to be able to track what their well-being and know, if they're out on the street. What would you be tracking specifically, do you think?
Well, so we didn't talk about it, but the thing would be like, how they're doing in terms of food, in terms of health, everything that could be done via an app. It's probably not going to be profitable. It's probably not for private organizations kind of thing to do that. But again, we didn't talk everything, how it's going to be implemented, but we are thinking about homelessness problem in San Francisco and how to solve this.
Right. So this could be a nonprofit or an NGO or something, or you're developing technology like an open.gov kind of project where you're making it available to anybody within the San Francisco, community that is responsible for the homelessness. Right. So a number of different potential directions that you could take with this. But it sounds like it's not going to be a traditional for-profit, which I don't think is going to be an issue. But ultimately, Aaron is going to, determine what the rules of engagement are.
That's right.
That's great. And so, does the homeless person have to have something on their person for you to be able to track them? Because you can imagine that, they would sell a cell phone in a minute for something, right? And so what would have to be on their person to be able to track them, and would that be something that would be a semi-permanent thing?
Yeah, it can be also much simpler, right? Like it can be also much simpler that we're using Airbnb principle or booking principle, right? Where we are monitoring like what is the availability of potential like shelters, right? Like and where there's a spaces, right? So this is like much more simpler, right? Then we monitor their just well-being, right? But like also like monitor the spaces where you can shelter people, right?
Yeah.
So that's much more simpler than where you don't risk such a stuff, right?
I get it. Okay, so it's more around the supply, if you will, of
or Airbnb for this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, listen. I know I took 10 extra minutes of your time, so forgive me for that. I can't thank you enough for being so deeply engaged. Really impressed with the great work that you did in such a short period of time, coming up with some really innovative ideas. And each of you working on something that's truly important, right? Each of you working on something that has some universality to it. So thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you as always for including me in this wonderful ELPP experience. It's always a blast.
Definitely.
And I will say goodnight to you all and wish you a great rest of the week.
Thanks so much, Mike, for a very lively discussion on team creativity. I think we can all see why you've won all those numerous teaching awards. A lot of good energy.
Thank you.
It's late in Boston. Have a good night, Mike, and I'll see you in a few weeks.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Good night now.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Right. Take care, everyone. Bye.
So what we'll do in the second half, I'm not sure if you saw my email or caught the early presentation of that, is that our faculty for this second half, Don Proctor, unable to make it tonight. So what it does allow an opportunity for all of you to work in team projects if you choose. You can choose not to, you can choose to. Whatever choice your team makes, I'll be here to help facilitate and answer questions for the next hour and 20 minutes or so. So we can take a quick 5-10 minute break or use the time however you like. It's yours.
Thanks, Aaron.
So in about 10 minutes, you guys can come back and then I'll open up the breakout rooms for you if you choose to move forward with that option.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron.
Okay. See you in 10. Chris, you and I are the only ones with cameras on. Hey, is Alex. I fully expected a lower attrition rate, but it seems like we got most of the class here. So again, it's up to you, completely up to you if you want to spend the time working with your team groups, spend the time with your loved ones. It's all up to you. Each decision is fine with me. So, but if that's the case, I will, if you want to continue with the class, I'm going to open up the breakout rooms right now.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll be here the entire time till 8 o'clock. Should you need any help, I'll be kind of hanging out in the main breakout room.
Hey, Aaron, our team decided to talk next week, so
sure.
we're going to decide talk next
good,
week.
Dabasis. Thanks for the update. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Lisa, I just pinged Suresh. If you're available and Michael's available, we can probably get through some of the stuff we're going to do later in the week.
Yeah, let's do that.
So we can close today.
All right,
yeah,
cool.
I know we don't have Vikram, but let's.
Yeah.
Arthi doesn't want to seem to join her team. She wants to hang out with us. Sorry, are you still there?
Yes, looks like it's just me and you. I was just responding to your text.
And anything good?
Yes, sounds good. Thank you. I will pull up